Do you remember the last time you picked up your child? Or the last time they wanted to hold your hand? I can't remember either of those things about my children, but I know they've happened and are well in the past now. And that's okay, and I'm sure it's the way things are meant to be, but it's still quite an emotional thing to think about. And that got me thinking about what an emotional roller coaster being a parent really is. And I don't think I had much of an idea about that before I embarked on parenthood, so it's definitely been a big learning experience for me. So I decided to make this video to talk about those things and to share some of the things I've learned and how I'm looking ahead with optimism despite the nostalgic and sad emotions that can bubble up as the childhood stage of parenthood moves into the past. So my children are young adults now, so it definitely feels that we're moving into a different type of parenting. And in many ways it's rather nice. I've been getting a taste of having some freedom back, and I've started to make some life choices that are all about me, which hasn't really been possible to do for almost the last 20 years. But it also feels a bit like the beginning of the end. I've got 2 children and neither of them have moved out yet, but I'm sure that day isn't too far away now, and I'm really not sure how that will feel when the time comes. My own parents didn't put any emotional pressure onto me when I left home, and I want to do the same for my children. But now that I'm almost there, I can see what a challenge that might be. Having children in the home is definitely a bit annoying at times, but it's also fun and it keeps you in touch with young people, so probably helps to keep you feeling a bit younger yourself. It's unpredictable, it's messy, it's expensive, it's extra work, but it's also such a nice feeling to still be in touch with their day-to-day lives and to get to know them as young adults. It's also comforting to know where they are and that they're safe, which is something that can be especially hard to let go of, in my experience. We all know, though, that deep down your children don't belong to you. You have them for a few years and then you have to let them go. And if you don't let them go, they'll never be able to build their own lives and become their own people, which is ultimately the goal of parenthood. But when you find yourself with something so vulnerable and helpless as a baby, the weight of the responsibility feels so big and so important, and it takes over your whole life. And the idea of letting them go or sending them off on their own is unthinkable. But thankfully that doesn't tend to happen overnight, and gradually they get older and start to crave their own independence, and they slowly start to pull away. And that gives the parents a bit of time to adjust. And it's strange to think back to a time before I had children and my relationship with my own parents. And it all looks a bit different now from the perspective of a parent with my own grown-up children. And probably, like a lot of teenagers and young adults, I was ready to leave them behind and fly the nest and experience life on my own. But I've gone full circle on that now, and I enjoy spending more time with them now than I probably ever did in the past. And I'm feeling aware that with the circle of life, it can't go on forever. So I need to make the most of being able to spend time with them while I can. And that's an emotional situation too. So everywhere I look, there are people I like being around who won't always be available to me in the future. And I need to try and enjoy them and not feel sad about how things might look different in the future. And for someone like me who thinks about everything so much, that causes a bit of a problem. I don't want to imagine a future that I don't like, but I also can't hide from the fact that some of that is coming and I can't stop it. So I know I'll find a way to be okay, but that doesn't stop it from being emotional to think about. I usually remember to pull myself back to the here and now, where I'm happy and I have all those people. But I do also want to be a little bit prepared for the future and the resilience that I might need. So I allow myself to dip my toe into those thoughts every now and again, and maybe it will help in the future. And it also serves as a good reminder to be grateful for what I have now and to remember to enjoy it, even the more challenging bits. Because nothing lasts forever and there's always more than one way to be happy in life if you open to moving in a new direction. And really that's what it was like when I moved into not being a parent, from not being a parent into being a parent. I remember really liking my life before parenthood and not wanting it to change. We had a lot of fun, a nice flat to live in, good friends, relaxing holidays. And then I was pregnant and I really wasn't sure if it was the right thing to do. But then the baby arrived and was lovely and we wondered why we ever had any doubts. And then the other one came along a couple of years later and wasn't quite so calm. So things did get a bit harder and a bit more sleep deprived for a year or two, but then settled down again. And the two of them were the best of friends and we had a lot of fun raising them over the next 10 years or so. We went on lots of adventures, like beach trips, caravan holidays, theme parks and all of those sorts of things. We always loved packing up the car and getting up early while it was still dark to head off on an adventure. And those simple things reminded us both of our own childhoods, and we felt lucky to be able to give those things to our children. So if you've had children yourself, you'll know that it isn't all as rosy as I'm making it sound, with relentless bath times, bedtimes, fussy eating, and all with a lack of freedom to do anything much for yourself. But I do remember thinking that despite the hardships, I wouldn't have wanted it any other way. So you get to experience and get used to having this nice family life that you're happy with, and then it goes and changes again. The teenage years arrive and suddenly children don't want to spend time with their parents anymore. The idea of even having parents can become quite offensive. I know that I was guilty of this myself, so I can't be a hypocrite and say that I didn't deserve a bit of it in return. But still, it does come as a bit of a shock if you didn't see it coming. And you start to get a few more of those first experiences again. The first time you get in the car by yourself and leave your children at home. The first time they get in a car being driven by one of their friends. The first time you go away somewhere without them. They can all be emotional experiences. There may be some excitement or elation about your regained freedom, but also a bit of heartbreak that their childhood is really over. So I'm choosing to focus on the feeling of being elated by the freedom. So I've tried to keep appreciating and enjoying that as I've started spending more and more time apart from them. So I'm trying to let things take their natural course, but without excluding them from my life. I generally extend an invitation to the children if I'm going somewhere, but I don't apply any pressure. And I've started to genuinely not mind whether they come with me or not. I'm getting used to not having to think about lots of people when I make my plans, and actually, it's okay. I do feel a bit sad about the stage of my life and how that's over, and I can understand why some people go on to have more children once the first ones are getting a bit older. But I was already into my 30s before I even had my first child, so carrying on was never an option for me, and I'm quite glad that I didn't have to think about that. So there we are. That takes us back to the present moment with a 17 and a 19-year-old who are starting to make their own way in the world and I'm pleased to see them doing that. I can look ahead to my own next chapter and put a bit more focus on myself, which sounds rather nice too. And if they ever watch this video, I'm sure they'll cringe with embarrassment, but hopefully they'll also see what a wonderful time that I've had being their mum and how much I've learned from the experience. And if they also go on to experience parenthood, maybe they'll relate to some of the things I've said. So those are my thoughts about the roller coaster of parenthood. I wonder if my story resonates with other people, or if your story is a bit different. I would love to know if you'd like to leave a comment. So I hope you've taken something useful from this video, but I think that's all for this time. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!